year is 1995. Nintendo have approached Sony to release a disc-based console called the Super Nintendo PlayStation. Yeah, you heard that right. Nintendo and Sony were originally going to be partners. Unbelievably, Nintendo pulled out of the deal and went with a rival company. They did not have much success with that, but Sony went ahead and released the PlayStation 1, and it changed gaming forever. It's the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation 1. It's time to do a video and talk about a retrospective of that console. Here we go. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode, and one I'm very excited to make, the PlayStation 1 retrospective. It's the 25th anniversary of my favourite console of all time. I actually can't believe I haven't made loads of videos about the PS1. I did do one about the PlayStation 1 Classic, but this should be much better, and like I said, I'm really excited about it, and I hope you are as well. Anyway, we talked a little bit about the PlayStation 1's history in the intro, but this is all about my history of the PlayStation 1. It's a true Liverpool Retro Gamer retrospective, and I'm hoping to do this about a lot of consoles, so if you do like this video, let me know. Anyway, we're going to talk about the first time I ever saw the PlayStation. I was in my cousin Matty's. He was very protective of it, because obviously it just came out a year or two before, and you know, when you've got cousins and that, they break stuff. So anyway, I remember he was playing Crash Bandicoot, and I just couldn't get my head around how different this thing was. The first console we ever had was a Super Nintendo, and you know, I was born and we had that machine, so I just thought that's what all consoles were like, you know, and it was so different to that. I mean, first impressions, I mean, looking at the thing right here, kids and younger viewers won't really get this, but it had discs, and that was just insane, the idea of putting in a disc. I mean, we were still using cassette tapes to listen to music at the time, but it actually had discs, which was just so bizarre, because we had cartridges in our machine. I had this memory card thing we didn't understand really, and yeah, it was just something else. I mean, it was something very, very different to what we knew. I mean, the controller as well, to be honest, if you actually put them side by side, other than the longer handles, they're not that much different, the original PlayStation 1 controller. And I love this thing. This is such a comfortable controller. And yeah, first impressions, I remember really liking it then as well. I mean, I had the two extra triggers there as well. And then obviously going a bit ahead of ourselves, but long term we did get the dual shock as well. But this is actually the dual analog, but that's because I'm fancy. But yeah, that's the one kids will know today. But I can't really put into words how surreal that feeling was of seeing all this new stuff with the machine. It was very, very different to cartridge-based systems. But anyway, going on to when we got our PlayStation 1. Christmas morning, we're living in a flat, me, my brother and sister, and my mum did that classic parent, you know, it's just such a great idea for a present for your kids. Just get them a console between them all, and they've all got a present. It's much cheaper, and everybody's happy because they're all sharing it, you know, in theory anyway. But yeah, woke up Christmas morning, and we saw this thing right here, the PlayStation 1. We just could not believe it. I mean, it's got all the games on the back there. Yeah, I love this machine. This is my favourite console box of all time as well. Obviously his favourite console. I need to stop saying of all time, because I'm going to say it like 100 times in this video. But yeah, this is actually our original PlayStation 1 as well, if you can believe that. It doesn't work too well. It only really works if it's on the side like this, you know, standing up. I'm sure a lot of people have a similar story to that. But yeah, this is it. Very, very happy to have it. Sadly not the original box, but that's what happens when you move house. But the first games we got with the system, and the first game we ever actually played on our system, was this one right here, Star Wars: The Masters of Terrascasi. Now, I'm sure that no one's going to have watched this or know about this video unless you've seen like top 10 worst Star Wars games or something like that. But I've got really, really fond memories of this game. I will admit though, playing this, thinking about Street Fighter 2, I was a bit like, well, this one, every time you jump, it's like you're jumping off the planet to the moon, so it's a bit crazy. However, the next game we played, and like I said, we'd said to me ma that we wanted Crash Bandicoot because my cousin had it. Well, she did was one better and got us Crash Bandicoot 2. Now, this is one of my favourite games of all time. It might be my favourite platformer, and I just think this is an absolute masterpiece. Every single bit of this game I love. I definitely prefer it over number 1, and I definitely prefer it over number 2. But yeah, we put so much time to this game. My mum was playing it with us for hours and hours that day, so yeah, so many happy memories, the music, everything. I could talk this, I'm gonna say this all the time in the video, but I can make a whole video about this in and of itself. Masterpiece of a game, and what a game to get. And the next one we got was Roscoe Mcqueen, Firefighter Extreme. Sadly, this one here doesn't have the front inlay. I mean, you can see the back there and you can see Roscoe with his axe. But this is like, you're a firefighter. It's a bit like an arcade type game, but it was just one of those games where it just showed the PlayStation going to be very, very different to the Super Nintendo. And I love this game again. We need to print off an inlay for that. And then the next one, I'm sure every lad that had, or every girl that had a PlayStation 1 back then had this. Hard Trilogy. This game and the cheats on this game were just something else. I mean, and we love Die Hard as well. And guess what? We watched it that day because it was Crimbo. But yeah, Hard Trilogy, brilliant game. Probably the best Christmas of my life. It was absolutely amazing and one of those memories I'll never ever forget. And I wish I had pictures of me with that console, let me tell you. Anyway, let's move on now a few years, go a bit further down the PlayStation's lifespan and talk about my favourite games on the console. Let's talk about the most important thing of any console, the games. If you don't have the games, doesn't matter what your system is like, nobody's going to buy it and nobody's going to have any memories of it. And let me tell you, the PlayStation 1 has so many good games. I feel for any kid who's only ever played the PlayStation Classic, because don't get me wrong, there's some world-class games on that, but it doesn't even scratch the surface for how many amazing games are on this system. I always say the PS1 has a lot of world-class games. I think maybe not world class, it's difficult because when a console's so much older, it's difficult to really sell it to somebody, but I think there's certain games on every machine which really are timeless. I mean, well, one for instance is Crash Bandicoot 2. Obviously that's got a HD remake recently, but I was talking about that earlier, and that's one that I would definitely put as one of my favourite games on the machine. But I'm going to run through the rest of them because I've got a little bit of a story for how it all happened. So the first one we're going to talk about is, I know it's not like the system seller, but I absolutely love this game, Tekken 2. I have looked at this box and read the manual and played this game hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Tekken 2 might be my favourite fighting game of all time. I absolutely love Tekken 2, and it was just like nothing else. I mean, like I said, on the Super Nintendo you play Street Fighter and you get a little, you know, you see Ryu, you know, and it'd be happy at the end when you won, but on this you get the story and the cinematics, and oh my word, I think that's the biggest thing which I'd take from the PlayStation 1 for its retrospective is the FMVs and the cinematics. The opening FMV and the music that plays with Tekken 2 for me is still, other than maybe Final Fantasy VIII, is possibly the best opening for any game I've ever played in my life. I just think it is absolutely phenomenal. And if you've not watched it, then you definitely should. And you should just buy this game and play it anyway, regardless if I'm talking about it. Anyway, so we got that one. Next thing you know, we get another little game called Abe's Odyssey. Well, Abe's Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. Wow, one of my favourite games. I don't even know what it's called. But yeah, Abe's Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, whatever, just a masterpiece. And this game, well, I love this game that much that I've got a tattoo of it on my arm, and I will be getting a tattoo of a lot of other game stuff, but this is one that I wanted from being a very, very young lad, and I'll go more into that when I do a video just about Abe's Odyssey. But this game was so mature, and like I said, I went from like Tekken 2 and a lot of stuff on the SNES, and when I went to play this, it suddenly took the story of the game to a much higher level, and for like I think I was probably like 6, 7 years old by the time I was ended up playing this one. I mean, I was lucky that I was playing it with my big brother Keith, because he talked me through it and explained a lot of the story to me, because like I said, I'm a little kid like, but this was a really, really phenomenal game, and it took platforming to that whole other level for me, and I still think this is probably one of the best platform games ever made to this day. And I'm so excited for the next one, the PS5, but we'll talk about that in another video. Anyway, after that one, oh, like, I just had such a great time with this console. I got this game, Metal Gear Solid. Now this game is arguably the best game of all time. It is really, really high up on that list for me, and it's one of my, it's got to be one of my top 10 favourite games of all time. This game was just something else. The music, the atmosphere, the story, it was just like nothing I'd ever played. I don't think it was like anything that anyone had ever played at that point. I mean, I know it had been on the MSX in Japan, but in Liverpool, I mean, like I said, this one, I really, really relied on my brother for this one, because obviously there's some really deep, dark undertones and a really big story that takes a lot of understanding. A lot of people play this game and don't even know what it was about sometimes, you know, but maybe they're not the type of people that should be playing Metal Gear Solid at the end of the day, but I absolutely love this game. It is a 10 out of 10, a masterpiece, and it is an absolute system seller. But anyway, got to play that, one of my favourite games of all time. And then after that, honestly, I could cry talking about it. My favourite game of all time, and my favourite system of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Now, even me as a kid, I remember the hype for this. This game was like, I remember seeing it on the side of buses in Liverpool. You never saw anything to do with games in Liverpool, like not really. And this was just, I had so much hype behind it. We got to play it in my dad's with our stepbrother Scott, and we were so jealous. I remember when we came back, we were like, Mum, we need this game. And we got it. We got Final Fantasy VII, and my word, me and our Keith must have put literally like probably like 1,000 hours into it. We just complete it and then play it again, then complete it and play it again, complete it and play it again. And that was just, it was the music. A lot of the time we'd just be sitting there and we'd just launch the title, boot it up, and we'd just sit there listening to the opening Final Fantasy, you know, like the prequel score, whatever it is, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, even all the sound effects, everything about it. I could literally talk for hours and hours and hours about Final Fantasy VII. This, to me, is the best game ever made, and some of the best memories ever of my childhood. But I'll tell you right now, one of my worst memories of my childhood, my Auntie Jane, one day, me and our Keith were sitting there playing it in my nan's, and I think we were at the Temple of the Ancients at this point, and anyway, yeah, we're just sitting there going through it, and she comes running in, and she just bought a game for a fella, and it was Football Manager on the PS1, and if anyone remembers that game, they know where I'm going with this. She was like, I've got to check if this game can work, blah, blah, blah. I think it was like a chip one. She put it in, took ours out, saved over everything on our memory card. It was horrible, and I will never forget how gutted we actually were in that moment. And she just walked away like, oh yeah, it works, it saves, on the phone to a fella, and we were just devastated. But anyway, not to take away from a great game, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII, somehow play this game. Masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. And something you may not know about that game is it was actually meant to be coming out on the N64 first, and I think it was something like they'd need like 250 cartridges to fit what they could fit on the CDs onto that. So that says an awful lot about the power of the two machines and, you know, how much more superior discs actually are. But anyway, going from that, we're going to talk about some of the more personal memories. I'll just quickly run through these. I've got a lot of games here which aren't the masterpieces, aren't the world-class, aren't the world-class games that a lot of people know the PlayStation 1 for. It's just a lot of personal stuff. I'm just going to quickly run through. SmackDown. I could talk about the WWF for a long time because me and my brother used to absolutely love it. But we used to play this game and make characters. Our Keith had this big blue character called The Beast, and it was a wild character. But yeah, we used to play that all the time. Destruction Derby 2. This game was amazing. Going in the dome and just smashing each other. It was absolutely boss. Really loved this game. Used to play it all the time. Rayman. This is somehow the first Rayman game that has managed to just totally go under the radar now. This was a brilliant platformer, and it really it showed the difference between what this console could do when it was good. This is a really funny one. My sister, I remember, because when we were kids and we were buying games, and this is something to say about the PlayStation 1 time as well, obviously there was like big chains, but a lot of the time when you buy a game, you just go to a toy shop. You just go into a toy shop and they just have random games on the side. It was crazy. But we went into this one time, and our Amy chose this game, Spice World. And you could like jump to different platforms and make your own music, and it was all about like making a music video or something. But my word, I used to play that with our Amy all the time because she absolutely loved the Spice Girls. Tomb Raider 2. Now, I know a lot of people absolutely love Tomb Raider, but for me, much similar in the vein of why I've never really got into Resident Evil, the tank controls are just not for me. Now, I love the new Tomb Raider games, but we used to just go on this all the time, and all we'd do is just lock that butler in the fridge. I know it's ridiculous, but it's all we would do. Next game I have really fond memories about, and I love the movie. I could talk about this for ages. Small Soldiers. This one of those games which obviously is not a world-class game, but I bet a lot of kids in England have a lot of memories with this. This is a fantastic game. If you were born in the 90s and watched that movie and were into Small Soldiers, but you could play a 2-player, and that was always a big killer. And this next one's just a bit of a obscure one, but this is one that one of our Keith's mates came over one day with a Dreamcast, and he had Psychic Force on it, and we managed to get hold of Psychic Force 2. And this is one of my only original PlayStation 1 games, which somehow loads of them. Well, basically, when my brother moved out, he took a lot of them with them. And somehow, yeah, we managed to keep hold of Psychic Force 2. And I used to always think this is what any Dragon Ball Z game should have been. It was really, really cool. But yeah, I could talk about so many more games. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Silent Hill, Resident Evil. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I haven't even mentioned Final Fantasy 8 or 9, you know, Tactics, you know, there's an awful lot to talk about. But just from a personal perspective, they were the games which I really, really loved and have really fond memories with. The next thing that I want to talk about is a phenomenon that happened and is still going on today. Piracy, which I know is very strange after talking about the games, but chipped games were absolutely massive. And I've got to admit, most of the games that I played as a kid were chipped games. This is a bit more of a luxurious side to chip games. A lot of the time you just get the disc in a little plastic wallet. But here we have Duke Nukem, and here we have, straight from Word Art, Metal Gear Solid 2. Well, Metal Gear Solid 1, Disc 2, sorry, wow. But yeah, a lot of kids today might be thinking like, what are you even on about? And you know, people do emulation and do ROMs and stuff, but back in the day, a chipped game and a chipped console was like an absolute necessity for like any working class kid that had a PlayStation. And I'll tell you what, the balls on the people, balls on the men and women that used to make these chip games and chip the consoles were enormous. Honestly, they were like heavyweight boxes, because on the estate that I grew up on, I remember one day just some random fella just knocked on my house and he said, all right mate, like, is your ma in, whatever. And I was like, oh, all right. I went and got her. I remember my mum standing there just smoking a biff to talk to this random fella, and he was like, how much do you pay for these PlayStation 1 games? She was like 50 quid, whatever. And he went, right, get on this. He was like, if you give me £25, he's like, I'll chip the console. I'll give you 5 free games with it. He was like, and then from then on, it's £10 for 5 games. And the attraction of that was just something else. And obviously you couldn't do this on a cartridge. Well, you might have been able to, but it wasn't as common, you know. But to get these ones, it was a big drawback of using CDs, because people could just burn them on there. And the amount of games we got, it was crazy. I mean, when this guy came over, I remember my mum did it for my birthday. She got my console chipped, and it was just, it was insane. I mean, loads of the games that I got. I mean, I remember specifically getting a Dragon Ball Z Final Bout, which you probably should have grabbed off the shelf, really. Give us a second. Bit of live grabbage. Here it is right here. Do you know what? Maybe I should have just done a cutaway to that, but we don't do things half-heartedly on Liverpool Retro Gamer. But I've got the real game here. Not the best game, just to let you know. But I remember that was the one I was dead excited about, because the guy came over, just this big list like that, and we just get a highlighter and go through it and put, you know, like the Roberts family or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that, because for whatever reason, people never mention chip games, and it was like a massive part of the PlayStation 1's history, you know, in the UK at least anyway. But yeah, that guy and, you know, whoever it was that knocked, I mean, there was probably like 1,000 homes in our estate, or, I mean, well, I mean, it was an awful lot anyway. There was an awful lot, and, you know, let's say he made a third of that. He made a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money. So, yeah, piracy, it pays. To summarise, the PlayStation 1 was a very successful system. It's my favourite console of all time, but it seems to have been liked by a lot of other people because it went on to sell over 100 million units. Those numbers are enormous. Only the Game Boy was rivaling it back in the day, and at the time, only the PS2 outsold it, and that's the best-selling console of all time. So that should tell you a lot about how successful and popular it actually was. But if you consider the legacy that it had and the influence that this system has had on gaming, I mean, look at the IPs, the likes of Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Abe's Oddworld, I mean, Metal Gear Solid. That's just the tip of the iceberg, and these games are some of the biggest in gaming history and have went on to influence people that have made the biggest games today. I mean, if you consider in modern day, Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the best-selling games on the PS4. I mean, the vast majority of its fans came from the PS1, so if that doesn't tell you something about this console's legacy and what an impact it's had on people, I don't know what will. But speaking from a personal perspective, this machine is probably the best gift that my mum could have ever got me. I mean, looking I mean, thinking about my background growing up, a lot of the people that grew up with me, I mean, without being rude to anyone, there's some people I know that haven't been that successful that grew up in the estate that I did, but I consider myself as quite a successful story, and the same with my brother and my sister as well. And I honestly think that this machine had such a big impact on influencing our character building and who we are as people. And now I'm so lucky I get to work as a games tester. I've also got to work in a retro game shop as well, and I know more about gaming now, and I'm more involved in gaming than I ever believed I would be. If you'd have told me when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, sitting there playing Fantasy Vii, that one day I was going to get to do this professionally, and it was going to, you know, shape my career and, you know, give me a real big option to live a happy life, I'd have never ever believed you. And I feel like I've been very blessed, and I could well up over here just talking about it. But as I said, speaking from a personal perspective, this is my favourite console of all time, and I could do 100 videos talking about how big an impact this has had on me and so many other people around the world as well, so many developers and so many games that have came out. I'm so grateful for PlayStation for making this system, and I think that it's always going to hold its place in gaming history. If there was ever going to be like the wonders of the gaming world, the PlayStation 1 would be right up there, you know, right along the likes of the Super Nintendo and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed the video. I hope you haven't went on too much or got a bit too personal at the end. Sorry about that. I mean, it shows how much I love this system, doesn't it? But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments, what are some of your favourite games with the PS1? What are your memories getting this system? And yeah, have you still got one? Or are you going to get one after watching this video? I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you guys keep watching it, I'll keep making the videos. Really hope you've all enjoyed it. Thank you for watching again. And until next time, peace. The beautiful music you've heard throughout the video was created, rearranged and composed by Johnny Adams VGM. Johnny's a really good mate of mine and he's very talented, so I'm going to try and use his music in all my videos going forward. If you're interested and you've liked what you've heard, he's just created a new YouTube video, so in the description I'll share a link to that as well as where you can find all the rest of his music. Thanks again Johnny, really appreciate it lad.